So for all the diseases that are connected with the spleen, all the problems that are connected with your left navi can be only corrected by Fatima. So you have to keep Fatima awakened within yourself. That we are here in the Islamic culture, you can say this is place of Islamic culture. And in the Islamic culture, a housewife was given a very, very important. At the time of Muhammad Sahib, there were struggles and fights and wars going on between different tribes. As a result, many young men were killed. Only quite old people survived, and also so many women. This is the reason why Hazrat Muhammad said that you can marry 4 wives, 5 wives, but you cannot allow them to remain unmarried, or they will have extramarital relationships. That will be the greatest fault for Islam, for that religion. So he understood that unless and until women are kept absolutely chaste, absolutely pure, there cannot be the kingdom of God. In Sanskrit there is a saying, Yatr pujante, tatr ramante, devata. Meaning, where the women are respected, are worshipped, and they are worshipful. Not that they are to be worshipped, but they are respected. There only exists the kingdom of God. So much responsibility is on women. So from Fatima's life we have to know that she did not go out of her house, and she remained a housewife. And she made her 2 children grow up in such a manner that they had to fight a war against fanaticism. Her husband also was there. This is how a woman of a housewife is shown to be so powerful that though she is in the house, though she looks to be just a mother, but how powerful she is. But these days, a new type of ideas have come up. Men also have been very nasty and very aggressive with women. As a result, we find there's a big opposition to men. And a kind of a big rift has been created between men and women. Also the men, the way they started becoming licentious, perverted, going to bad women, the good women also thought, why not we also become like that? And they also started doing wrong things which they should not have done. That's how the whole society crumbled down. Now the men are responsible for the politics and the economics, and also the nation as administrators. But women are responsible for the system. Whether she's in the house or she's outside, whether she's working in the house or outside, she is responsible for the maintenance of the system. And then it looks sometimes to a woman that she's dominated, that her husband dominates her, that the husband's family dominates her. But it's the quality of a woman that brings up the level of the society, not only the level, but also in the family, she is then respected. It's a very important role as a housewife. Perhaps we never realize it. Now we see so many lights here. Electricity is there running. But what is the source of this electricity? Is it not much more important than these lights? So men are nothing but, we can say, the kinetic energy. But what is the potential is the woman of the house. But these days it is becoming a very funny situation. I was surprised when I went to Italy also that how women have made themselves cheap. And they want to look attractive to every man. What is it? It's a joyous pursuit into which men are going, and women are making themselves absolutely cheap. This cheapness of women is not going to give them any strength or joy. I know one feels very unhappy the way men treat them. But you must have your own personality. You must have your own understanding that you are a woman, you are Shakti. And nobody can suppress a Shakti. But if you do not keep to your own personality or to your chastity, then you cannot achieve your goal in life. And your goal in life is to give power to your son, to your husband, to all the society. The woman gives power. I am also a woman, as you know, and I also have a family. With all the powers that I have, I never showed them that I had all these powers. I always listened to my husband, obeyed him, though sometimes he was very unreasonable also. And he also came from a society which was more Islamic oriented. But it was just a joke for him. Because I thought he's just like a child. And I have to be very patient. He always says that because of my powers he earned everything in life. Always, in the presence of everyone he says. I don't know that part. But definitely I feel very satisfied with my own married life. I never think the way other people think that we must try to dominate the husband, we must fight him, we must have a right to do this. Our right is within ourselves, within our powers. Also the men must realize that they have to respect her. I mean, not to such an extent that she tells you to do something wrong, you just get lost with this. That's not the thing. That's slavishness. Men have to be men. It in no way means the women are dominated by men. I never felt that. Because if you have your own powers, ultimately whatever may be the husband, he'll have to come and understand what you want. He'll have to know what you want. I've seen it many times in my own lifetime that it has done that way.
Shri Mataji. Thank you, Shri Mataji, for getting us together this evening for a session And Shri Mataji is telling about the qualities of a woman, the Gruhalxmi, the homemaker, in this Shri Fatima Puja talk in Turkey in 1993. And we are assembled here today to discuss this very rare and increasingly endangered quality of the woman as the homemaker. And in Sahaja Yoga, as we know, the woman is the Shakti, the power. And yet these winds of change are sort of questioning or unruffling the set trends. So we have this session, if you could, because Shri Mataji spent 14 years in England, in the heart of the universe. So if you would please, Maureen, Rossi, Grayzna and Felicity Payment, first of all, thank you for taking your time and joining us. And if you would please share your memories of Shri Mataji, the perfect Gruhalxmi, and the qualities that you saw from her that we hope to emulate and pass on to the society and make it a largely beneficial, holistic, and ethical society. Maureen, would you like to start the evening, please, with your recollection of Shri Mataji as the Gruhalxmi?
Yes, thank you. Well, I think the first thing that I'll recount is something that Shri Mataji told me very early on when we were in India for our first tour, which was 1977. And it was a 3-month tour, and we stayed with Sahaja Yogis the whole time, always in families. And Shri Mataji described to me that the women's power is the love behind the curtain. And she meant that, she explained to me that what she meant was that it's a power that is not, how shall I say, it's not shown off. It's very much self-contained, but nonetheless incredibly strong. And when I was in India, one of the families we stayed with was a gentleman called Mr. Rao, and he had a farm. And his wife used to stand just behind the curtain watching if she could do anything for us as her guests. And I very much felt like I was seeing a play of that power. You know, she was there, not subservient, but literally attentive and seeing what she could do to make sure her guests were properly attended to. She was quite shy and she smiled sweetly, you know, if we caught her eye and everything. But she ran that house. She ran the whole thing. She had multiple relatives staying there, brothers, uncles, grandparents, but never obviously in our face, if you like. And this was something that I felt later on when Shri Mataji gave that talk about Gruhalxmi's powers, that it's something that is incredibly subtle, the same as Sahaja Yoga is incredibly subtle. And we have to be aware that life has become incredibly gross and that people's desires are even, you know, emulating that. And it might seem to modern people that the idea of perhaps serving a guest in that way is a little bit putting yourself down. But if you see that someone has that power and they're confident in that power, they don't need to make a big fuss about it. It's something far stronger than if someone strode into the room and said, "There's food over there, help yourself." Which is kind of the modern way, isn't it? You know, let's not sort of, you know, I want to join the party too, kind of thing. So that's what I would say in a nutshell, is how I feel about this special quality and special place that the ladies, the women have to uphold.
Thank you, Maureen. And Grayzna, would you like to share your experience of Shri Mataji as the Gruhalxmi? And we'll go on to Felicity there after Grayzna. And then can we also talk about the woman. Of course, we know as mother, she has a family, she has all of us, and she has the whole world and the universe, and she's the source of all that power. And how you sort of gleaned from that power and directly applied it in your lives, if I were to make it more relevant and contemporary, because it might seem to some viewers, maybe in times to come, that, like you say, just hiding behind the curtain or just standing behind it, she's not hiding, but behind the
No.
curtain, but keeping a watchful eye of this Sahaja Yogini who's, just what's going on, who wants what, and where she can arrange to do what sort of thing. In today's circumstances, as you say, it's very much in your face. Gate crash the party, or just buffet, just help yourself. Those finer niceties are sort of uh, getting slowly, they're fading away, shall we say?
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be great if you could all cover this aspect, please. Grazyna.
Mm. Well, for me, from what I have seen, the way Shri Mataji was as a Gruhalaxmi was a little bit different, because it was love, but it was very much universal for everyone. So, because we have this love in the household, and Shri Mataji loves her family, looked after the family. At the same time, she was expanding this love to everyone. So, for me, the Gruhalxmi quality is also benevolence to everyone. So Shri Mataji was benevolent to everyone, and as a housewife, that's our role. So we are nourishing and benevolent to our husband, our children, their friends, further family, neighbors. So we create harmony and peace, and that's how Shri Mataji was, creating love, harmony, and peace. And how we do this, she is the best example of everything. She would give us presents, she would take us to concerts, she would cook for us. She would, when I first came, she understood my situation immediately, and she helped me so much without me even asking. So intuitively, women know what is good to be done for the family, for friends, for everyone. So that's how the Gruhalxmi, in my view, should be, has to have a heart that it's a feeling heart.
A heart full of love. Okay, thank you for that, Grazyna. Felicity?
So as I was listening, the qualities that really were coming into my attention: graciousness, love, and giving. I remember, and this we saw with Shri Mataji, her concern, when she would always be asking, if she was in a room with people, how are you? And not just, oh, how are you? But really, how are you? How is your family? Sometimes she would ask people, and she would be genuinely concerned as to what work they were doing, how things were going in their lives, because she wanted to help them bring balance and, have successful lives. For me, I feel like everything that I am is because of Shri Mataji, that over so many years, you absorb by watching her, listening to her. We were fortunate to interact with her. And it's hard to separate in some ways who I was from what I am now. And the growth is continuous and subtle on many levels. And one of the things that I wanted to share about giving as a Lakshmi, I remember very early on being in Dollis Hill Ashram, and I'd had a lot of problems when I came in with my chakras. But I felt a lot of, when we were in a room together, we used to work on each other a lot. And sometimes even when Mother was there, I remember in this room in Dollis Hill in the living room, and there was somebody next to me, and for some reason, something about them touched my heart. And I remember having this instinctive reaction to want to give and help. And I must have started somehow giving vibrations in a subtle way, because Shri Mataji was there in front of us. And she suddenly stopped and looked and said, and look at Felicity, look how much she's come up. It's the giving. And I thought, and I went, oh, and that when you give with your heart, when you give with love, especially when you give vibrations, it actually has a beneficial effect on you. So by giving and working on other people, I was also clearing myself without realizing it. And when I became a mother, a wife first, and then a mother, I mean, then your giving capacity in some ways is tested, but it just increases. That's what really astounded me about being a wife and a mother, that you don't actually have limits to your powers of love or giving. I remember having 3 children and being told we were going to have twins. And I remember feeling, but my heart is so full for these 3 children already. How can I, how can I love 2 more? And then they're born, and somehow your heart just expands. And I feel like that is something that we should understand, that, Shri Mataji said to us, you have all my powers, you have so many powers, and they really are there. And we often aren't aware of them until we're in a situation where you're challenged. And if you can rise to that. One other little thing, that after we'd been married 20 years, we had 5 children, and we were part of the collective, and we decided we wanted to celebrate this and take food to the ashram and feed everybody. It felt like this is a really nice, joyful thing. We've actually been married 20 years. That's pretty amazing. And let's just, share this joy with everyone. And I remember we cooked food ahead of time, then we took it to the ashram, and we had it all laid out, actually buffet style. And everybody came. And I remember standing, feeling the love and the joy of everybody there. And I suddenly had this sense inside myself that somehow over these 20 years of giving, of loving, of supporting the family, of kind of working out how to be a wife and mother, because it's a learning process. It's a learning experience that you build on. And I just suddenly felt that I can't really put it into words, but I was filled with this sense that I had accumulated boons from this 20 years of work and love, raising the family, being part of the collective. And I just felt like that that Mother was giving me all these blessings, and that I somehow had these boons. And I remember asking that everyone should feel the love in the room. It was such a tangible thing. So it's such a very subtle experience, being a wife and mother and a Gruhalxmi. And it takes time to find that balance, to maintain your sense of self, of who you are, your spirit, and at the same time being able to give and take care of everybody else. And I think it took me quite some time to understand that actually it all comes down to balance, that you have to have balance in everything. That's my little bit.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Maureen, would you like to share how, you know, in Shri Mataji's talk, she has explained how men and women are, and that in our cases, the husbands and the wives, they are the two wheels of a chariot. So they're equal, but not the same. Now, in our days and times, and people would probably be laughing 50 years or 100 years later when times change, probably for better or for worse. How was that practice as you saw, you know, Shri Mataji and yourself?
Right. Well, with Shri Mataji, obviously early on, we saw a lot of Shri Mataji in her family life with her husband, Sir CP. And it was incredible to see how she balanced this amazing job that she had taken on of bringing self-realization to the world with being not just a wife, but a diplomat's wife. And she did everything from doing the cooking. I can remember standing there watching her cooking in the kitchen. And I felt I should do something. So I got hold of a cloth and started wiping things down. I thought I must help in some way, you know. And I got slightly carried away and I was going down the sides of the cabinets. And Shri Mataji sort of said to me, "It's good, but not too much, you know." And it was just like a lesson of what, you know, you just a bit like Felicity is saying, you keep in the balance that we tend to be either very, very sloppy or very, very particular, you know, in our housewifey type things or even our households. And it's keeping that balance between, you know, how is it Mother said, not even a rat would enter in because it's so clean that, you know, you can't have a visitor. Or the other side, the hippie sort of side where, you know, piles of rubbish everywhere. Yes, so watching Shri Mataji balance that role of a loving wife, supportive, doing everything, and yet also the next minute she would be dealing with a whole room of seekers and giving that same love and attention to each one and not missing anybody out, concerned that everybody got their food, that everybody, she gave me a coat once, you know, have a coat, you know, it's cold out, you know. And when she put it on me, she said, "This looks very nice on you," instead of sort of giving, you know, it was one of her coats and I wore it until it virtually dropped off me. But you know, there was that. But she also encouraged us as women to be to go into education, to get jobs. She encouraged me to go and study, and that's why I did my psychology degree. And even when I had the children, it wasn't just a case of that's your only thing you do. With my psychology degree, she felt I should perhaps look into doing further work with that. So it's very interesting. There was not this that people might get the idea that we just sit at home and, you know, keep the household. We actually turn into the goddess with several arms.
Yes.
Juggling.
Multitasking.
Exactly. You know, and you know, Shri Mataji was the perfect example of that. You know, 1 minute, as I say, cooking the dinner, the next minute giving lectures in a giant hall, traveling all over. You know, a thing that is, you know, people might say that if you're a householder, you don't move outside the house. She described that with Fatima, that she didn't go outside the house at that time. That must be what happened. But she always encouraged us and helped us to fulfill ourselves. And I think this is the subtle thing that perhaps people miss, is that they feel that to be someone who is a good Gruhalxmi, is a very subtle inner thing, not just cooking a meal or whatever it is. It's, as Grazyna was saying, and you know, that love, that the concern, and really it's putting yourself second, but not in a subservient way. You know, just as with a child, you wouldn't think, oh, I'm really tired, why do I have to get up to this child? Your first thought is, what's wrong with the child, isn't it? You know, however tired you are. And it's that same thing, in that if for society you have that care, if you really care that much, then you are going to do your best to keep that balance for the society. And it so happens that women are good at it. You know, why knock it? We're given that power, and it's an extraordinary power. And men have different powers. You know, I'm very happy not to have to go out and lift weights, or whatever it is. You know, but
Yes.
it's fascinating. We're like jigsaws. We fit together, but we're not the same. You know, it's an amazing power. Things like wearing a sari. I feel incredibly blessed to be a lady, to be able to wear a sari as Shri Mataji did.
Yes.
You know, and I think people have lost perhaps the idea as to why that is important. It's again a subtle thing. The sari is a subtle protection that we wind around ourselves of pure material, and it protects us. You know,
As you've mentioned that, because increasingly now in collectives all over the world, be it India or abroad, it's the protocols are not being adhered to. You know, you're going to worship the goddess, and yet people come in casual clothes sometimes.
yeah. Yes, it's interesting because again for us, we were in front of Shri Mataji physically, and she put my first sari on, as I've described in other things. And from that first time, it felt so special. It's like your self-realization. It's something so subtle that words don't explain it. You have to feel it. And when you put a sari on, you somehow immediately become slightly more dignified. I can remember seeing, we went to Navratri and we were there for 9 nights. And there was a beautiful French girl, and she wore saris every time. And then I saw her on the last day when she was in her normal European clothes. And somehow, you know, she looked completely different. She had lost that sort of universal look. And I couldn't really describe what, I almost didn't recognize her because the sari gave her a special quality. Punjabis. Shri Mataji said she wore Punjabis when she was a child.
Yeah.
So from that, we can note that when you are no longer a child, you know, they are very useful. You know,
Yes.
they're great garments to wear, you know, doing active things, but they're not the same, and they don't have the same protocol as a sari. So as you say, for in Shri Mataji's presence at puja, which is how we feel, then, you know, there is a special reason for wearing that.
Yeah, and Punjabis, just for clarity's sake, in the Indian subcontinent, Punjabis is salwar kurta or salwar kameez.
Yeah.
So there, okay.
Can
Yeah,
I
no,
just
that,
to
go on.
this? Can I just add to this?
Yes, please.
It depends why we're going to the puja. Because if we are going to worship the divine, what happens is we adorn the deities by wearing a sari. That's how it is. They immediately respond, you know, to that particular dress because it's the dress of the goddess. So it's a very subtle way of feeling it. And we need to understand that if we want to benefit from the puja, to get the blessings and the vibrations, wearing a sari could, you know, increase this. Sometimes we don't have a sari. This is not like a, but I think it's best try to get a sari and wear a sari at pujas and see how you feel.
Yeah, it's something personal, the experience, isn't it?
Personal
And
experience, exactly. Um, it's very easy to get a sari now. For some countries, it's not, and if for some countries it's not, that's different. Also, sometimes it's good to wear a beautiful dress if they cannot get a sari, like a beautiful, a special dress just for this occasion. That's possible, like in Africa, for example. There's beautiful dresses that they wear. It's traditional, something very traditional and beautiful. You know, it's all depends on you and your attitude and your feelings towards worshipping the goddess.
exactly. And sometimes probably the situation the people are in. For example, there's unrest in certain parts of the world, and it's not possible then to wear a sari, but wherever possible, as you said, it is it because it also shows the effort we make in terms of actually, it not just on a superficial, but in a subtle level, recognizing who Shri Mataji is and preparing ourselves to receive those vibrations and offer her the puja so she accepts it, isn't it?
And I just wanted to say that silk and cotton,
Yes.
probably, if possible, not always possible, but sort of mix maybe material, or but natural materials are always better.
Because the natural materials absorb.
Absorb vibrations, yes, yes. Don't stop the vibrations. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did see Shri Mataji. I think particularly if you're going up for the Devi puja as a woman, that does need to be as far as sari, because I saw Mother turn people away, who weren't coming up. There's something very deeply auspicious and important about wearing a sari. We used to take extras when we went to pujas in our collective in case there was a new person there who didn't have a sari, and so we could share or give to them. And I think this is nice to be to think ahead like that. And I did have an experience when I had my third child that I was feeding, and we were going to a small puja in a small ashram, only about 30 people, and I felt, oh, I'm just really tired. The effort to put a sari on, I'll take it with me. I'll take it with me. And I got there and I didn't put it on, and I sat down and we started the puja, and I started to feel really uncomfortable. And I was like restless. I couldn't relax. And finally I thought, I'm going to have to, is this because I need to wear a sari? I think I'm going to have to go get up. So in the middle of the puja, I was at the back, or I guess we were like a quarter way into the puja. I got up and went in the bedroom and put on my sari and came back and sat down. And as soon as I sat down, the vibrations came up, everything relaxed. And so for me, this was, an important lesson. That wherever I was, I should be wearing a sari, because I knew better.
Well, also at some point, it's important to mention here possibly that, it's Shri Mataji advice that as ladies, as yoginis, all girls, we have to dress up in a dignified way, which means we are not exposing our chakras. Is there any reflection on that from yourselves?
Well, very much the Sri chakra and the Sri on
Lalit?
both sides, the Sri Lalita and the Sri chakra shouldn't really be exposed on the shoulders, which, it depends. In some countries, it's not just the shoulders. So,
But preferably the knees shouldn't be also exposed because it's the Nabi chakra. So
Yeah.
I don't know what you can do now.
So mini skirts are out.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, who are we pleasing?
Yes.
You know, who are we pleasing? Are we pleasing ourselves? You
Yeah.
know, not really.
No.
Who are we following? Are we following ourselves? You know,
True.
that Shri Mataji has talked quite a bit about the fact that it's what she calls entrepreneurs coming up with new ideas, like the whole ripped trousers thing. And you know, I still, I mean, I know it's age, but I still see someone with ripped trousers. You have paid
Back in
for
trend.
someone to rip your trousers, and then you paid money for it. You know, it's astounding how it's the emperor's new clothes. How people can be
Absolutely.
fooled literally into thinking this looks good. You know,
Also,
but
confidence in yourself, you know, that you can,
yeah,
that you don't need to follow a trend. And it's particularly challenging for young people and teenagers.
yeah.
And I do remember, I hope this is not out of line to share this, but I do remember that there was one time Shri Mataji came to America, to LA, and we'd heard that a lot of the mums were, or people in the collective were upset because of the way the young people were dressing, the young yuvas were dressing. And actually, Shri Mataji said, she supported the yuvas and she just said, you know, they're okay, leave them to me, I'll sort them out. So as with most things, you know, we should apply these things to ourselves and be judging others for the way they are dressing. You know, I think it's so important that we know these things, and Shri Mataji shares these protocols and these understandings with us, but it's not, doesn't give us the right to judge others who aren't necessarily following that, because we don't know their circumstances, we don't know what they're working out. But if we understand that and we feel this is, you know, we want to follow what Mother said, and for us, this is what we're doing, and that's important, you know. So it's like,
Well, I had a little story like that, whereby at the end of a program, a girl dressed in jeans and a top sort of came and gave Mother a flower, and I kind of went, you know, she's coming like that up to Mother, judging her basically. And then later I learned that this lady had come all the way from somewhere like Russia, and she had never seen Shri Mataji in person like that. She had only seen her from the back of a football stadium, and it was all she had on, but she had her flower, and she just wanted to give it to Mother. So, you know, sometimes, as you say, it's not the dress at that point. You know, people's hearts are there. So
this
it's
is,
getting that balance.
and this is what I really learned this from Shri Mataji, was she responded to people's hearts. I saw one puja, we were sitting in Kabela, I think. It was a Diwali puja, and it was after the puja, the gift giving had started, and the Swiss came on, or the you know, world leaders came on with the specially bought gift for Shri Mataji that I think she might even have chosen herself, but was a very beautiful necklace. It must have, you know, could have had diamonds or something, and it was a really special necklace. And I remember seeing it, and it was being you know, it was offered to Mother. They came up, they offered it. Mother sort of gave a glance, and then it moved on. And then some other gifts were offered. And then this young woman came up, and she came and she knelt in front of Shri Mataji, and she had this little glass swan figurine. And as she leant towards it, Shri Mataji like came alive. As she leant towards Mother to give this, Shri Mataji like suddenly came alive and bent down and was so effusive, and oh, how beautiful this is, and where did it come from? And you could see the heart, this yogini, just open and melt. And I just went, Shri Mataji knows what's in her heart. You know, she's not responding at all to the quality of the gift. She's responding to the heart with which it was given. And I think, I feel that is something that I've imbibed as a Lakshmi, that it's not what is given, but it's how it's given, you know, that is so important. And I really learned that from Shri Mataji.
Was it one of the Kubela pujas that you saw this?
Sorry?
Was it in a puja in Kubela?
Well, I'm thinking that it might have been in Kanajahari. It was a Diwali puja. I just can see the stage and, you know, all the people behind in the pendle and,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
a big puja. It was a big puja.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Before we move on to the photos that Greshna's collated kindly, thank you very much for that. Is there any other experience that comes to your mind, Maureen, Greshna?
I wanted to share about some particular talks that really helped me a lot. In the beginning, I would say as a wife, I understood mother's inspirations and teachings to be that I should be like the sort of subservient Indian wife. You know, we would be held up this model of, you know, what an Indian wife was like. And that didn't seem to be really working for me and I remember after about 7 years, I was a bit confused as to the balance and, you know, exactly how I should be. And I went to Europe and I was part of a Sri Fatima Puja in 1988 on the border of Switzerland and Italy.
Mm.
That was such an incredible talk. Shri Mataji talks for over an hour about the roles of men and women. And she was so funny and humorous. And, you know, I remember this story particularly. She tells one or two stories, and one is, you know, she refers to her husband and her brother as being shouty sort of fellows. And I thought, oh, you know, she showed how, because I had this impression. I remember very early on in first year thinking, oh, it's easy for mother to be a Gruhalxmi, you know, a good wife. She has a perfect marriage. Everything is sort of happy in her marriage. But no, she played out these little Mayas with her family for us to see how, you know, how to be a Lakshmi in challenging situations when your relatives aren't behaving as maybe as nicely as you would like them to. And then in another thing in this talk, she talks about how, so her husband is insisting on planting a certain kind of tree. And he says, oh, it's this tree. Like, I can't remember exactly. He says and she knows it's not, that it's actually a mango tree or something, but she just doesn't say, she just, you know, and the way she tells the story, like, it's not important to be right. It's not important to, you know, correct him. It'll all work out, you know, as it does. Eventually the tree grows and they go, oh my goodness, it's actually a such and such tree. But something fundamental changed in me after listening to that, after being there in that puja and hearing this talk. And I remember feeling, oh, we don't have to be the same. It's okay. I was confused because he would react to things differently from me. And I was like, well, how should I react then? I'm feeling this, he's feeling that. And in that talk, I felt mother showing us that we are different. And for me, from that talk, I understood that my role is the moral dharma in the family. And that I should, if I need to take a stand, I should hold on to that is important. And the other things are not so important. But I feel that is a very supportive, pivotal talk for men and particularly women. And there is another talk that she gave called The Role of Women in Kanajahari. And there she addresses the sort of what she says is that you can do anything as a woman. If you want to have a career, you are a career person, but do it as a woman. Still have your Lakshmi qualities emanating, because that is what is going to make you successful. So, yeah.
There was also a talk in Shuddhi Camp's role of women.
Yeah.
Very important. I think we'll put the links to all these talks of Shri Mataji on empowering women, and so therefore we can have some more first-hand information from Shri Mataji herself while you share your stories.
So that-
Yes.
But you were saying about the chariot, the two wheels of the chariot, that Shri Mataji talked to us in those kind of ways early on a lot. And she really said that it would be, firstly, very boring if you were exactly the same, you know, which is quite a unique sort of way of looking. But it's true. She said if you were both there, you know, doing exactly, oh, yes, let's do this, let's do, you know, we have to clean or we have to, it just doesn't work. She, you know, and again, it's the same thing as the chariot on the two. If the wheels are all going sort of close together, they're going to tangle up, apart from anything else. And the chariot's going to fall over. So it was very much that you know, you have your role and you keep your roles, and in those roles you manage to keep the whole thing moving. But if you muddle up the roles, it can get very difficult to have a smooth relationship.
Yes, and it's not that easy though, isn't it? Like in these days and times to have that sort of that quiet, that silent power of love with all the self-respect to actually you know, like what it seems like the well, what Felicity mentioned, I must say, the Indian wife being subservient.
Yeah.
Hardly anyone subservient these days, Felicity, in modern India. But also it's how I think Shumaji has said how, you know, the Indian women, they know how to control their husbands by cooking things for them that they
Yeah.
So I had an young Indian man staying with us at one point, and he said to me, he said, and he must have been watching me or something, and he said, you think that the Indian women are all kind of quiet and everything. He said, you don't in their homes. They're quite different, and that they, you know, it's just, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, the typical Indian women, you know, we can't stereotype as we say, but I had to say it because although I'm a yogi, I'm from that part of the world.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it's actually that it's interesting because, as you say, how to do it.
Yeah.
But it's actually incredibly relaxing if you don't feel that you have to constantly put yourself forward.
Yeah.
That it's to keep your counsel, you know, and to use it sensibly. Because if you're both putting forward, yes, but like you were saying about the tree, you know, it will grow and it will be obvious. You know, and there are times when it's much more relaxing to keep that comment or that sort of forceful action and just let it go, because you know eventually that the thing will work out. You know that it's a wise place to come from, and it's that wisdom I think that we have to grow as ladies within us.
And to be patient with oneself, because time, you know, it takes time for you and your husband, you know, just to sort of to get to know each other, and you know, allow yourself the time to grow and change and understand that, okay, maybe I'm not there yet, but this is a quality I'd like to develop. And over time, it will. If you have that desire, it will.
Can I just say something?
Go for it.
Okay. I also feel every situation is different. Every marriage is different. Every husband is different. And, you know, there's no set rule in the marriage, because, you know, sometimes you have to put yourself forward. You got to be strong. Sometimes it just depends on the situation. But basically, whatever the woman does, she has to be strong. She cannot be sort of like the tree that's just about to collapse. She has to make herself strong uh, uh, through example of mother and through basically the care that she has to give to everyone, because without that the family may collapse, and everything can be quite difficult. So even if she feels sometimes depressed, because quite often I hear yoginis say, you know, they don't feel well, and that they feel like this and like that. You know, sometimes, not very often, but they have to pull themselves together and just carry on, really, because there is no there is no other choice. And I remember Shri Mataji was saying also, if women would be in charge of the world,
Hmm.
they would do this very well, because the world would be their house. And they will want to put everything right, everything working together in a harmonious and beautiful way. So hopefully the caring attitude of and the attitude that we need to create harmony and no conflict should be the guiding star for yoginis to follow.
And keep a sense of humor.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, sense of humor and everything in within reason, in balance, like Shri has shown by example. There's nothing to be taken to an extreme, whether it is bearing up with patience and tolerance, but you know, just if something needs correcting, then it needs correcting. So tough love, especially in terms of bringing up children or relationships. Sometimes, if you know, if you have to say something, then you do convey it, but it's the how it's done with the heart that makes a difference, doesn't it?
Mm. And not to make dramas. She said that to me at one point. You know, don't create dramas in your mind, in yourself. You know, things are it's a play, it's a maya, and I think sometimes in the West we make things seem a lot more important. I remember seeing a young Indian woman getting married. Well, not so young, she didn't look so young. And I remember saying to her, oh, you know, how's it going or something. And I realized that she was so just normal and balanced and detached, and yeah, this is my husband and we're just going to get on with it and be married, you know. And I went like, oh, um, an enlightened way of looking at things, you know, because I was coming from the West where everything is sort of emotional and, you know,
All
little.
the romantic ideas.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, lovely. Some photos that we share now, if we could. So if you would take turns to please talk about these photos. Grayzna, Maureen,
Oh,
is it visible?
yes. Yeah.
Can we see where the photo is from? There should be some information. No. I don't know about this one. I think it's in.
There's lots of tomatoes in there, and there's a huge big pan, so some sort of seminar
Could
that
be in
Shri is cooking.
Austria.
I love how Shri has put the tea towel as an apron to protect
Yeah.
her. Sorry.
Yeah. Fabulous.
It's
Yes.
Shri Mataji used to wear apron as well, you know, quite
Yeah.
often. You know, so, and she would just organize yogis to cook, tell them. When I first came, I remember Dolly's Hill Ashram, she was cooking for us. She was cooking her favorite chicken, and she was asking us You have to chop that much garlic, that much onion, and you have to add the spices. So she was actually telling us what to do and how to cook.
Yes.
Yes. When Shri Mataji made dal, she put so much butter in it. So much. She said, I know some people say, but really it has to be. I remember saying that.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yes.
And it was always it was always a lot. You
Yes.
usually it was a lot, huge pots, you know, with everything.
It looks like a birthday cake, doesn't it?
It is, isn't it?
That must be Shri Mataji's birthday cake.
Maureen, do you
It's
recognize?
Guru Puja. It's the declaration. It's the 2nd December 1979. That's what the title.
Oh,
1979. Oh, okay.
yes, it's definitely Dollis Hill.
Dollis Hill, yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dollis Hill, yes.
Gosh.
Actually got those miracle lights that were
It is,
taken.
isn't it? Yeah, beautiful.
There's
And
a
you can
series,
see it in the foreground as well, the vibrations.
there's
Mm.
a series of photos taken at that time, showing the
Yeah.
lights in Mother.
Amazing.
Uh,
Thank you. Yes.
This,
Oh, what a beautiful photo.
this is yet another photo, and of course we have a book with Shri Mataji's recipes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cooking with love.
Yes, and that's what she was doing always, completely
Mm.
doing the cooking and.
that is a very interesting point, that when you eat food that has been cooked with love, it has such a different feel. You feel so satisfied. It's a little bit so vibrated. And Shmataji, if you ate her food that she cooked, it was just so deeply satisfying.
And I must say, if we go to restaurants, the food doesn't taste the same. It can be very good quality and everything, but
Yeah.
it's now
Yeah.
yogis, you can feel that there is something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Now, Shri is making barfis in this one. Can
Mm.
anyone
This is
identify where is this?
Brompton Square Kitchen.
Wow.
Brompton Square Kitchen is.
Because she hosted quite a few diplomatic dinners, didn't she? Both at Ashley Gardens and in Brompton Square. And she was a very hands-on cook, even though she had a cook as well.
It seems to me the same sari that Shri is wearing in Scotland in the fishing photo.
Possibly.
You cannot really see very well the sari right now.
No, I'm just looking at the pattern, the little we can see. And it reminds me of that photo, that's why. But what would Shri wear when there wasn't a puja or a function? What sort of sari would she wear?
She would always, well, very often wear a white silk sari for us. Very often.
This public program usually Mother would wear the white sari, except and TV interviews, except for Exeter TV interview, Shri Mataji didn't wear white sari. This was very unusual because there was a puja just before, and she didn't have time to change, though she wanted to change, but yogis who were with her, they were saying, no, we sorry, but they were saying this. No, we don't have enough time. But there was plenty of time because when she arrived, something was cancelled, and people have plenty of time to get realization and yeah. So she was wearing this beautiful puja sari in the studio during the TV interview. So this was the only time probably.
Okay. It's really very nice to sort of have these photos and to hear your experiences from those Lovely, lovely times. Is there any incident that comes to your mind, or any advice that Shri Mataji gave you personally that you'd like to share very quickly before we wrap up?
She told me not to be critical. I had two experiences where one, she was telling me the situation of a wife, and she kept saying, and she makes all these critical comments. What do you think? She kept saying to me, and she says this and this, and what do you think? And finally I realized, you know, mother's telling me this for a reason. You know, I mustn't be critical. And when I got married, the next morning we were having breakfast together and just sitting quietly at this table, and suddenly all these critical thoughts just kept jumping in my head, you know, oh, he does this and this and this. But because mother had given me this warning in a way, I just thought, don't say anything, keep your mouth closed, don't say anything. It was such a strong, it must have been some kind of negativity that was just trying to create disharmony, and I just kept my mouth shut the whole time, and then it just went away.
Good on you. Thank you, Felicity. Maureen, Krishna?
Nothing at this moment.
That's fine. I think it's just very nice we have sort of touched the essence of Shri Mataji as the perfect Gruhalxmi, and thank you so much for taking your time out this evening for this session. I mean, in the collective, you're very good examples for us all to see as Sahaja Yogini, as a mother, as a daughter, also sister, and grandmothers, and you know, it's just so nice to see you all and to rejoice in Shri Mataji's blessings. Thank you so much for joining us. Jai Shri Mataji. Thank you so
Jai
much.
Shri Mataji.
Just about to